His name may ring a bell as the senior vice president of the Central Bank of Oman. He's a man of many roles. He's a father, he's an inspirational speaker, and now he is an author of Refracted Reflections, a book that delves into faith, morals, and society. His name is Iqbal Al Lawati. Mr. Iqbal Al Lawati, welcome to an edition of OER Leaderspeak.
Thank you.
So to begin with our interview today, I'd like to ask you about your book, Refracted Reflections. Where did the idea germinate?
Okay, I think that one of the culprits, if I can call, of this idea germination is perhaps the COVID lockdowns. Because, we had a lot of time, and I always had a penchant for reading a lot, non-fiction. So in those days, I was reading a book called The Questions and Answers, the Philosopher's Book of Questions and Answers, by a guy called Whitcover. And the format of that book was that they had some questions before each chapter, and then they encouraged you to give your own response before reading what the philosophers say about it. And there were many philosophers quoted in that book. In different chapters were about different philosophers. So I actually had the time and the initiative, and the subject has always been of interest to me, and I've always had a lot of my own ideas. So I started answering those questions very methodically. And by the time I finished the book and my Q&A session within myself, I felt that I had done a lot of work, and then rather than see it go to waste, I thought I should do something with it. So that's how the idea germinated. And if you like, that was the seed. And this is very well, of course, acknowledged in my book as well in the introduction. So that was the starting point, and from there I started. And then I went much beyond the extent of the book that I referred, because I got a platform where I could put on my own views on other things as well, beyond the ambit of the questions raised in the book itself. So that is how the idea germinated, and that's how the book finally saw some daylight.
So the term refraction is the process of light deviating from a path, and reflection is a juxtaposition of that word in many ways. It is light coming back. So what made you follow this narrative with this title?
See, the book is a composition of my reflections on life and on the values of life and on the spiritual matters as well as the physical, the metaphysicals and all that. So the reflections came from that. And then I thought to myself, these are reflections, but these are my reflections. Somebody else reading the same subject may not have the same reflections. They may be reflecting something else. So that is where the word refracted cropped in. That, okay, so these are reflections, but they are reflected by the prism of my understanding and my mind. So because now that prism thing came in, that deviations came in, so therefore I said that more aptly the book should be called Refracted Reflections, not just reflections. Reflections means whenever you look at the same thing, you look at the mirror, you should see the same thing. And when I look at the mirror, I should always see the same thing. But these are issues where two people cannot agree 100% on what is being reflected. So I thought, let me throw in the word refracted. So that's why the refracted reflection.
So you're leaving this up to the reader for interpretation, is it?
Absolutely, and this is again mentioned in my book as well, that this is just food for thought and to excite some curiosity and all that on the subjects. The readers don't have to agree with me or follow my line of reflections. They can have their own refracted reflection, in other words.
So the book starts with the origin of the universe, and it broadly focuses on three main segments. So that's faith, morals, and society. Can you give us an insight into the segmentation that you have done?
Okay, when the book started, as I said, it started from the Q&A series, and that took me through various issues, some to do with social, some to do with morals, and some obviously to do with faith, but philosophical faith, not faith as in religious-based faith. And when I started putting more things in it from my own side, I could see these major divisions showing themselves up. I saw that a lot of discussions in the book hovered around the faith issue, the spiritual issue, but then they veered off into social and moral issues as well. So when I started writing the book, it was not this segmented. The book was a brainstorming put on mind and then channelized into more calm waters, if you like. The storm is a word that, like, you know, everything is topsy-turvy. But then after the storm, you come and you sort out things. So after my brainstorming, when I started sorting out things and resolving them, these sections almost emerged logically and naturally. So this is where I moved the paragraphs and the topics around and put them in those three subheadings, if you like.
The book deals with metaphysical and transcendental ideas like self, soul, life and death on the one hand, and real-life advice on happiness, civic responsibilities, work on the other. Some may call it a mix of the esoteric, while the mundane, you term it as synchronization. Why is it important for humans to strike this balance or harmony?
Okay, I think it is very human it's very essential for a human being to understand himself first. And this is also borne out by many religions, almost all of them if I'm not mistaken, that to understand the universe, to understand the things, to understand the values of life, you have to first internalize and understand yourself. Without understanding yourself, you will always be at odds with understanding the universe and the people that you deal with in this universe, the people that you interact with. So therefore, I felt that it is very important that a human being to have some spiritual and self-realization, and having that to synchronize it with the values that he sees in the world, with the morals that he sees in the world, with the social customs and cultures that he sees in the world, and tries to synchronize his internal values, his internal aspirations with the external world, because only then there can be an harmony between the individual and the universe that he lives in. And if that is achieved on a global level, let's say, I say global as opposed to an individual level, not necessarily global meaning 6.5 billion people on this earth. But if I can achieve that and people around me can achieve that, then we have a perfect synchronization with each other. We can live with our differences. We can live with our variances. This is one of the main problems facing the world today. That everybody has become so intolerant of other people, whether it is to do with faith, whether it is to do with customs, whether it is to do with other values that we hold, moralities, morals. But if we synchronize ourselves with the outer world, then we will not necessarily change to become like the other person, but we will learn to be much more tolerant and acceptability of the individuals that we interact with. And my God, if that rolls out on a larger and larger canvas, then you can imagine what a changed world that it might foster in.
Definitely. Now, in parting reflections, you state that each chapter of the book touches on the different facets of the wholesome self of the human being. Now, can this wholesome self be achieved by people who are caught up with day-to-day challenges without much time for introspection or self-growth?
No doubt. Absolutely no doubt. Every individual on this earth who is living has time to sleep, work, indulge in his hobbies, eat, drink. We have time in the world for all these things. I don't think that there's any individual who does not have the time. However busy you may be, you can be working 18 hours a day, doesn't matter. But even while you're working, you see, as an individual, you are always with yourself. You are never far from yourself. So in all your environments, in all your preoccupations, you can always be very self-assertive and self-aware of the issues that you are going through in life, of dealing with your colleagues, of dealing with your friends, dealing with your family. So these are all learning avenues, these are all learning potentials. So one has to be just conscious about that he is going through life, and he has to find a base to have some values imbibed in himself as a self-voluntary action while he is going through it. And as he does that, he himself becomes more and more aware of what he is going through and what others are going through. Which leads me back to my earlier statement that is where synchronization happens, and that's where tolerance comes in.
You've learned so much from your career. You've learned so much from your life. You're a father as well, and a grandfather. But how much has being an author actually taught you?
Oh, a lot. A lot. I brought my experience, my exposure to my book, obviously. It's part and parcel of me. I don't have to bring it, it comes with me. It comes with the package that is me. So that has definitely there. But I think writing the book also made me aware of quite a few issues that perhaps were not, maybe we were aware of it in general terms, but then you become acutely aware of some of the going-ons in the world and some of the issues that we talk about daily and see it on the news, in television and read on the media. And some of them look pretty hypocritical, if I can use the word. I would not like to go too much in depth of that, but where saving future generations and dealing with current generations is concerned and all that. And these subjects are adequately covered in my book, so I would not like to go too much in details of that. But there seemed to be a disconnect between what is our intended aim for the future as humanity and our current actions as humanity. There seems to be a disconnect between the two. And I became acutely aware of that, and I have tried to highlight some of that in my book, so that perhaps some influencers or thought leaders might be able to pick it up and do something about it.
Now that you say it, you've just foraged into this new segment as an author. What are some of the challenges that you may have seen Omani authors go through?
The biggest challenge, see, as an author, I don't have any challenges. If I put it in my mind and in my intention to write a book, I can write a book. I'm sitting at home, I take a pen and paper, well, the modern equivalent of pen and paper, the laptop or desktop or whatever, and I start writing. And I put all my thoughts, I spew out all my thoughts on paper. So that is not a challenge. The challenge is going forward from that in getting my work published, in getting my work properly accredited and ISBN registrations and all that. But most important, I find the challenges in visibility and marketing. We have very, very limited channels, if any at all, that will allow us to become visible as authors and to be able to market our books, our publications properly, objectively, and in a consolidated manner. This I find is the biggest challenge. And I find that my biggest block, having written this book, is to find avenues through which book dealers or book wholesalers, book brokers would pick up this book and then try to sell it to the stores in the region, because it is one thing for your book to be available for online purchase, but it is also much more gratifying to find your book available off the shelves in bookshops. My book is currently available in hardback, softback, paperback, and a digital version as well for the Kindle and audio version. And the Kindle version, or which works on laptops and this and that. But very soon I have the audio version also coming out. That is not yet released, but I hope it will be released in the next 3 to 4 weeks.